So from 7:30 in the morning till after 5 in the afternoon, you mean to tell me you went walking around in the park in order to make me believe you were still going to business college?
Mother, it wasn't as bad as it sounds. I went inside places to get warmed up.
Inside where?
I went to the art museum and the birdhouse at the zoo. I visited the penguins every day. Some days I did without lunch, and I went to the movies, but lately in the afternoons I've been going to that place called the Jewel Box. That big glass house where they raise the tropical flowers.
Honey, you did all this to deceive me? For deception? Now why? Why? Laura, why?
Mother, when you are disappointed, you get that awful suffering look on your face like the picture of Jesus' mother in the museum.
Cornelius Williams descended from an illustrious Tennessee family, but loud, hard-drinking, a ladies' man. Edwina Williams, daughter of a minister, mentally unstable, sexually repressed. Their son Tennessee inherited the best and the worst from both. In March 1911, he was born Thomas Lanier Williams in Columbus, Mississippi. Tom spent his infant years in this home belonging to the Episcopal Church, where his grandfather was a highly respected minister. Edwina stayed home and doted on Tom and his older sister, Rose. Cornelius, a traveling salesman, was usually out of town. And when Cornelius was home, he bullied and terrorized his wife and young children. Edwina ignored her husband, reserving her affection for Tom and Rose. But she was also controlling, warning that any misbehavior would be punished by God. When Tom was 4 years old, the family moved to Clarksdale, another town in Mississippi. Already a needy child, Tom needed even more when he fell deathly ill.
My brother was a victim of diphtheria, and for a year, he wasn't able hardly to get out of the house. His legs were practically skin and bone. He couldn't hardly walk.
But he could discover the world of words. His mother introduced him to writers like Shakespeare and Dickens. During Tom's 2-year illness, Edwina Williams grew even more protective of her frail son. Tom also spent hours with his sister Rose. The two became inseparable best friends. Then, in 1918, Tom's world was turned upside down. His father got a new job with the International Shoe Company. The Williams family was uprooted from rural Mississippi to St. Louis, one of the largest cities in America. Williams hated the town and his new school, which he compared to a jail. His misery was compounded because his incompatible parents were now under the same roof in this apartment building. In 1919, there was a third child, Dakin, and money was tight. Tom was ridiculed by his macho dad, who mocked him as a sissy and wondered whether he was raising a homosexual. Mom wasn't a model parent either. She was manipulative, continually warning her children about men like their father.
The mother could at times be extremely difficult, being very puritanical about sex. And of course, the effect on the children was divisive, was destructive.
Rose and Tom found solace in each other. They played together, then when they were old enough, went to movies together at the local theater. They were similar in personality, best friends, and soulmates.
Rose was his one really great love. It was one to whom he was at all times faithful, as he was to his writing. They were the two major forces in his life.
But in her late teens, Rose began showing signs of mental problems, violent mood swings, hysterical crying, adding even more tension to the home. The breaking point came one night when Tom assaulted Rose with his most dangerous weapon, his words.
My brother met her coming down the stairs and said, "I never want to see your ugly face again." And that was a tremendous blow, because my sister at that time was just wavering between sanity and insanity. And the next day, she took a carving knife and went after my father with it.
Eventually, the family had Rose Williams committed to a mental hospital. Tom was devastated, and for the rest of his life feared that he too might go mad. Fortunately, there was an outlet: writing.
I have tricks in my pocket. I have things up my sleeve, but I am the opposite of a stage magician. He gives you illusion which has the appearance of truth, and I give you truth in the pleasant disguise of illusion. To begin with, I turn back time. I reverse it to that quaint period, the 30s, when the huge middle class of America was matriculating in a school for the blind. Their eyes had failed them, or they had failed their eyes, and so were having their fingers pressed forcibly down on the fiery braille alphabet of a dissolving economy. In Spain, there was revolution. Here, there was only shouting and confusion. In Spain, there was Guernica. Here, there were disturbances of labor, sometimes pretty violent, in otherwise peaceful cities such as Chicago, Cleveland, and St. Louis. This is the social background of the play. The play is memory. Being a memory play, it is dimly lighted, it is sentimental, it is not realistic. In memory, everything seems to happen to music. That explains the fiddle in the wings. I am the narrator of the play and also a character in it. The other characters are my mother Amanda, my sister Laura, and a gentleman caller who appears in the final scenes. He is the most realistic character in the play, being an emissary from a world of reality that we were somehow set apart from. But since I have a poet's weakness for symbols, I use this character also as a symbol. He is the long-delayed, but always expected something that we live for. There is a fifth character in the play, but he only appears in this larger-than-life-size photograph. This is my father, who left us a long time ago. He was a telephone man who fell in love with long distances. He gave up his job with the telephone company and skipped the light fantastic out of town. The last we heard of him was a picture postcard from Mazatlan on the Pacific coast of Mexico containing a message of 2 words: hello, goodbye, and no address.
Writing. He became more serious about it at age 19 when he entered the University of Missouri. Tom wrote poetry. A kiss brings pain, and yet I'll kiss again. His father wasn't exactly proud. Tom's prowess in poetry was nothing to brag about at poker games, and Cornelius Williams flew into a rage when Tom flunked ROTC military training. He felt his son was a disgrace to the family, not a real man. He yanked Tom out of college and put him to work at International Shoe. By day, 21-year-old Tom stacked boxes in this warehouse in St. Louis. By night, he wrote. His tools were a typewriter, coffee, cigarettes, and persistence. After 3 years in the shoe factory, Tom entered Washington University in St. Louis. At 24, he was one of the oldest students on campus. In 1936, he won first prize of $25 in a poetry competition. For the first time, Tom felt he might actually have real talent. So he entered one of his plays in a university drama contest. When it got 4th place, Tom's ego was crushed. He screamed at his professor, quit school, and stormed off campus. The next year, 1937, It was on to college number 3, the University of Iowa. Once again, he wrote plays and acted in a student production. This time, he even graduated. And he decided Thomas Lanier Williams just wasn't a suitable name. So he named himself after the state settled by some of his ancestors. From now on, he would be Tennessee Williams.
I didn't go to the moon. I went much further. For time is the longest distance between two places. Not long after that, I left St. Louis. I descended the steps of our fire escape for a last time. And from then on, I followed in my father's footsteps, attempting to find in motion what was lost in space. I traveled around a great deal. The city swept about me like dead leaves. Leaves that were brightly colored, but torn away from the branches. I would have stopped, but I was pursued by something. It always came upon me unawares, taking me altogether by surprise. Perhaps it was a familiar bit of music. Perhaps it was only a piece of transparent glass. Perhaps I'm walking along the street at night in some strange city before I have found companions. I pass the lighted window of a shop where perfume is sold. The window is filled with pieces of colored glass, tiny transparent bottles in delicate colors like bits of a shattered rainbow. Then, all at once, my sister touches my shoulder, and I turn around and look into her eyes. Laura. Laura. I tried so hard to leave you behind me, but I am more faithful than I intended to be. I reach for a cigarette, I cross the street, I run to the movies or a bar, I buy a drink, I speak to the nearest stranger. Anything that will blow your candles out. For nowadays, the world is lit by lightning. Blow out your candles, Laura.